Right, welcome back. I hope everyone is well fed and energized for this afternoon. There's going to be minimal moderation for this session, partly because we're a bit behind time and partly because I, for one, have heard enough of me already today. So I'm going to hand over very swiftly to Nick Chambers to take you through the first session with a focus on the survey and to bring up some of those who've taken part. Princess Laurentine is with us again. Welcome back. She'll be then sharing that conversation with us. We'll then go to the students from New York University, Abu Dhabi, who will tell us how they've been hacking their own curriculum, what they want to be learning. And then finally, we'll hear from some of the WorldSkills champions in a session moderated by Valerie Hannon. Is Valerie here yet? Anyone who has Valerie's WhatsApp, please send her a message saying she's on in about an hour's time, probably. And then we'll wrap it all up and then go back and feed back to the other group and then hear what they've been discussing as well. So, Nick, I won't hold you up any longer.
Not at all. Thank you very much. Good. It's fantastic to be here. Can you hear me at the back? Good. I'm going to start off actually with a poll that's closed about 10 minutes ago by OECD, by the Future of Work. You'll have seen the exhibition as you go down to the main conference centre. And it asked, an online poll, and it asked how best we prepare people for for future of work. And here are the results, literally hot off the press. And I'm particularly pleased to say that the top of this poll, Shane's at the back if you want to speak to him about this, is the idea of connecting young people with firms, with employers. And that's something that our charity is really focused on. So if you want to take a quick screenshot of that, there we go. Hopefully if this button works, I can get the OECD slide. There we go. Oops, hang on. Brilliant. My name's Nick Chambers. I'm the Chief Exec of a charity, not-for-profit, called Education and Employers. We're 10 years old, and we focus, not surprisingly, on connecting education and employers, really to help inspire young people, show them what's possible in life. At the heart of what we do is research. I'm going to focus a little bit of that today, but we also connect employers and schools together, by getting people to go in and talk to kids and show them the reality of life. Over the last 10 years, we've done extensive research on the impact of employer engagement. I'm particularly pleased at the back of the room is Anthony Mann, who helped me set up the charity 10 years ago and is now here leading on education policy at the OECD. So fantastic to have Anthony here with us today. We think there's a real impact that employers can have on young people. They can help with motivation, and if kids are more motivated, they're more likely to achieve. They can challenge gender stereotyping, and they can also reduce the chances of becoming not in education, employment and training. That's now at the heart of one of our government's career policies, and the reason for that is the more children get to understand the world of work, the more likely they are to choose a career that suits their needs and skills. Now, 4 years ago, we produced a 2-minute video, which I'm now going to show you, which showed the 66 children in one class, and they were asked to draw a fighter pilot, a firefighter, and a surgeon. It's really simple, and this video will show you what they drew. If technology works. There we go.
This afternoon, we're going to draw people doing different jobs. And the first job we're going to draw is a firefighter.
Have a think in your head what a firefighter looks like.
What's your firefighter called?
Mine's called Firefighter Gary.
Firefighter Stan. Firefighter Simon.
He's big and strong.
He's got a big helmet on.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Next, we're going to draw a surgeon.
Have you thought of a name for your surgeon?
Jim Bob.
Jim Bob.
He's a brain surgeon.
I think he would wear a stethoscope. He gives you medicine.
That's his ambulance.
OK, next, we're going to draw a fighter pilot.
This is his jet plane.
He rescues people.
He likes to do stunts in the air and stuff.
OK, now, who would like to meet these people for real?
Yeah! They're dressed up.
My name's Tamsin and I'm a surgeon in the NHS.
My name's Lauren and I'm a pilot in the Royal Air Force.
My name's Lucy. I'm a firefighter in the London Fire Brigade.
So who wants to know how to do an operation?
Who's putting it on?
I'm trying my stethoscope.
We put this in here. There you go. Now you're a proper fighter pilot.
So into your ears. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
It's really good. It's much better, yeah, it's much better than the kids' one.
That's had about 100 million views and now being reproduced in a number of different countries. And it shows really clearly that these stereotypes that young people have start at an early age. Well, we didn't think 66 was a really big enough sample to be quoted as proper serious research. So we did a survey in conjunction with OECD Education and Skills, where we got children from all over the world, very simply, to draw a picture of the job they aspired to be when they grow up, and also who inspired them. Why did they do that? Why did they write or draw that particular job? We had 20,000 children take part, and here are the results. We found that in every single country, gender stereotyping was evident. The top job in many countries for girls was... No, I'm not going to pick on you. Anyone idea of the top job for girls? We heard it a few times. Teacher. Why is that? Well, the majority of, A, the great role models, B, the majority of teachers in primary schools are female, so that's what they see all the time. We'll come on to the pattern of jobs they were choosing were very similar to the pattern of jobs of 18-year-olds. TV, a huge influence on young people, and very few actually had any real experience of the world of work. We did this graph. The bottom, you don't need to, we didn't put the code on. The code is economic sectors, and I've just labelled 3 for you to see. And in light orange, those are the careers 7-year-olds are choosing. And in darker orange, those are 17-year-olds. And in grey, that's for the UK, that's jobs in the UK, predicted jobs in the UK. And this is a piece of work that Ant and I worked on. We called it Nothing in Common, because the career aspirations of young people had nothing in common with the labour market, and I'll come back to that. But those patterns start at an early age. And to quote Andreas in his speech this morning, you know, how can kids see what's there unless they meet people? It's a brilliant quote, this, can't see what you can't be. Right, so we're now looking at the views of, having started with 7 to 11-year-olds, we're now looking at 14 to 18-year-olds to hear their voice, and it's so pleasing to be here and to have so many young people be hearing their voice in a few minutes. So this is an online survey we launched 2 weeks ago. We've done, so I'm going to give you the interim findings. Majority was an online survey, and there are little cards there which you can sort of click, and those of you who've got Q readers or whatever they call Q car readers, it takes you straight through it. So a really simple survey, and then we ask them a bit of free text, and I'm going to now tell you what the sort of response has been to date. We've had 6,000 responses, mainly from the UK, about 5,000 from the UK, but today we're launching internationally, and the closing date is at the end of the year. So, now bear in mind these are 14 to 18-year-olds, so what sectors do they want to work in? Well, perhaps not surprisingly, art, culture, media comes top, education. And if I go down one, and if you look at the data released on PISA today, there's some really interesting, I think it's chapter 6 of the careers section, some really detailed on a much bigger sample size on that. If we go further down, international body, not-for-profit, 2.2%, maybe not doing very well. But again, if kids can't see the careers you have in working for places like this, how on earth are they going to aspire to? But you know, here we are focusing on it, and lots of people talking about energy and renewables, and just look how far they are down the pecking order. So how certain? Well, they're fairly certain. All right, so Lots of them want to work in culture, media and sport, and they're fairly certain. How confident are they getting those jobs? Well, they're pretty confident. This surprised us. So they're pretty certain what they want and pretty confident they're going to get it. Are they informed? Well, apparently they are. Well, now, where are they getting this inspiration from? How are they finding this information? Well, who's been helping them at their school? You know, looking at job vacancies, understanding labour market, 11.8% are getting information on labour market and jobs. So most of them are getting none of these. Look at apprenticeships. Interesting to hear what was said earlier in the session about, focus on universities. We've had a big push in the UK. Clearly, worldwide, there's a lot more to do on that. Who has influenced you to get the job? Now, some of these, are fairly similar. So we've lumped some of them together, and here we have them lumped together. So family, friends of family, neighbours, people we see, nearly 50%. Employers and schools, 8 and 14% respectively. Those are the things we can change. Very hard to change the other. But if we really want to influence children, the 14 and 8% are areas where we should focus. What issues? This is standard one. When we did this, people said, don't put this because everyone will think that climate change comes top. Actually, pleasingly, it does come very high. But, family and health, we were very surprised by that finding and very pleased with it as well. So now on to your voice. We were asked, the ones who'd filled the online survey, we then said, why don't you write a letter? And why don't you set out some of your views? We want to hear your voice. We want to hear what young people have to say. So I'm just going to show you a few samples of the sort of things they have been saying. You won't expect to read this, so I've zoomed it up. Here we go. Nawalaga from Uganda. This is from a very rural part of Uganda. It's about a 5-hour drive from Kampala. Can you read this at the back? Oh, it's not easy to read. But she wants to be a midwife. Why? Because of the number of women, mothers who die in labour and the alarming rate at which children below the age of 5 are losing their lives. So a 16-year-old girl, and that's her aspiration. Made this a bit easier to read. Come from India. Again, you can see the strong influence there of TV, social media. I'm going to flick through these. And this is what she says a bit more. I think when we've been here listening to the PISA scores, this is just a really interesting insight into what a young 16-year-old is thinking. Going on to another part of the world, Uganda. Again, a focus a lot on the health and well-being. Mentioning AI, not as many people are mentioning AI, but the whole idea about communication and helping each other. Not certain, not confident. Huge influence in Uganda. In Uganda, what do you think the top choices of job are in rural Uganda for young people? Health, yeah. So doctor and nurse are high up there. What else? What's the next one, do you think? Education, teachers, because they see teachers. So they see teachers. They see doctors and nurses. What else do they see? If you're in rural Uganda. What's your environment going to be? What are you going to see every day? Farmers. So farming, and then occasionally drivers, because they see people picking them up, because that's what they see. So why would they see anything else? Because that's their immediate surroundings. Back in England now, climate equality coming up very high. This idea about us all being treated with dignity and respect. Again, this is quite a common theme actually from young people. Really socially aware and socially responsible. And the idea of making a difference. Again, comes out, wants to work at the UN, so someone interested in international side. You know, I mean, to write, you know, peace, security, human rights, sustainable human development. Not many more of these. Morgan is profoundly deaf and has struggled through life, you know, struggled to find hope. But as I get older, I realise I must fight to achieve what I want in life, and he wants to use his knowledge of science to help young people who've suffered with deafness. Maybe got a couple more to go. Back to Australia again. Some very, you know, just showing the sort of complex. I think my headset's falling off here. Don't worry about it. You know, just the struggles that people's lives have and the complexity of young people's lives and the numerous things, you know, numerous people who are carers for family and friends, you know, an awful lot going on in there, but this sort of passion to help others, very common theme. And finally, our last letter, this is from Africa, particularly moving. You know, and the other thing about rural issue, again, that came up again on a couple of speeches. So we're at 6,000 now. We're going to push this out internationally, and we're going to be presenting this on the 22nd of January in Davos. If you haven't taken part, I would encourage you to do so. And I'm going to hand back to Tom now, where we're actually going to hear from some of the young people themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nick. And in fact, I'm going to hand it then straight on to the young people and to Professor Florentine to take forward that conversation. So welcome. Who's coming up? We're going to have a rapid turnover of names, and then it's all yours.
Great. Well, while we're getting settled and creating a zoo and a bit of unruliness here, I'm really pleased to introduce these wonderful students. I don't need a chair, please. Yes. And I'll be. I put on my sneakers, so I'll be running around, giving the floor to the young people, and perhaps what we'll do is we'll take about 20 minutes that we'll have an open conversation, open dialogue here. And I'd love to take, obviously, questions from you that you have for the youngsters. So I just want to start very wide openly. When you think about the world, what comes to mind? What do you think? Anyone?
When I first think about the word, I think about the thing I love, like the thing I have have enthusiasm to, because that can let me feel more about this word, more like joy about the word. If I find what I truly love, then this word means different to me.
Okay. And why is that important?
Because that kind of make the word more colorful, because it is move in the track I want it to move, the thing I want to fulfill, like what I love.
But the world, it starts with a sense of you loving, so it starts with your feeling and not from the outside. It's you need to be grounded in that world.
I think like my point is like everyone should have like it's better if everyone found and fulfill what they love, and the world may become more like better if everyone all fight for what they love and if they can really do it. But the true reality is kind of complex, and that is a lot of obstacles that like stop people from pursuing what they love.
We'll get to that, exactly. And as I'm reminding, as I'm listening to you, please write down what you hear. That's dialogue, that's listening. And the reason I'm saying that is because, A, it shows respect to the people who are talking, that they actually say, wow, what I say actually resonates, and that people might think about it when they leave this room. And for you, you will see it will help in your deeper listening, because the moment you write something down that you hear, you don't need to put it in a box at this moment. You just need to take it in, and then later on you go back to your jobs and you say, that issue, I remember one of them said this and that. So I would really encourage you, I won't come back to that, usually I'm stricter, but please encourage you to write things down. Who else, some thought about the world?
So when I first saw the world, I think about connections. So firstly, we are connected into different families, and the families are connected to the whole community, and then the society, the nation, and the globalization. Like in this forum, we are connected with different nationality, but we have the chance to sit here and discuss about the world issues and educations. So I think the world is really colorful and good because of all those connections.
Unfortunately, when I think of the world, the first thing that comes to mind is politics a lot, which not a lot of people have a good idea of. It's
What feeling, when you think of politics, what feeling do you have?
admittedly almost naive open-mindedness, because there's the idea of people want to do good in the world, but the issue is often the people that want to do good aren't the ones that are able to, and it's quite unfortunate to see that, like, people here, these people who want to reform education and help the next generation, these people are doing the right thing with their ability to speak, but there are those that unfortunately don't have that, who are less privileged.
Who else thought?
So, world I connect to one river, because river connect somewhere all. So, like more of knowledge, learning, feeling of connection, emotions. So, like,
Are you positive about the world? Who has a thought? Positive, negative?
I'm kind of mixed emotions about that, because I believe it's all about your luck and where you live, basically, because I live in London and that's a place of opportunity. I get to go to school. Children are meant to be at school till 18, and the government pays for us to go to school, whereas I recently found out that in Philippines, our standards in school and reading are very, very low, and that's partially because the government is quite corrupt and the kids don't really have opportunities. Like, for you to go to school, you have to pay, and that's very hard for some families. And my heart breaks for that, because I believe everyone deserves an education, and that's the key to the future, because we are the future. We will decide what path we want to take and how we will move on and improve life how it is right now. So, yeah.
Before we move to education specifically, some of you talk a lot about hope, and again, the issue of hope. Does anybody have any thought about why this notion of hope is important, or does it resonate with you?
I think that hope is crucial, because if we don't have hope, we don't have a drive to move forward. I tend to be kind of pessimistic about the world most of the time. I think that a lot of things are going wrong, and there's so much more that could be done that isn't being done. I don't really know why. So yeah, I think that we get to make our future, we get to decide what the world will look like tomorrow, but for that we need to hope that we can change the world, and I think that's why hope is important. It's what motivates us to change the world in the image that we want it.
So when we talk about learning in a broader sense, and everyone has different definitions. That's why we're gathered here as well. We all have different definitions of what learning is. What does learning mean to you?
I think learning for me is something that could provide a whole. I think all aspects of learning should be involved. I think creativity is important. I think
why?
Creativity, because it allows us to discover ourselves, because we live in a world where we have to fit into standards, and often we have to repress our personality, and we do not get the opportunity to express and discover ourselves. So I think creativity is very important. I also think critical analysis of everything that surrounds us. We live in a world where we get massive loads of information every day, every single moment, and we need to be able to distinguish what we want to know and like what we want to remember. We need to know what the right from the wrong, in the sense that not everything is like, there can be fake news and stuff like that.
Can anybody give an example specifically about that? Take us into your world where, like you say, you're bombarded with all kinds of information, and sometimes you're like, what? I don't get it. Can anybody give us a bit of a sense? I'm not on social media. I will admit it publicly, but can you give us a sense of this kind of, because we talk about this issue, but let's take it one step deeper and say, well, this is what happens on getting a lot of information and how to distill it.
So I can't speak for other countries in the world, but I know especially with England, where I'm from, schooling is less on more how to learn, and it becomes quite easily exam factories where students are there for the sole purpose of passing an exam, and once they're done with that, they're sort of left to fend for themselves, as it were. But the problem with that is you put a lot of stress on students, and you give them high expectations of you either do this or you die. It's very similar to, I don't know, animalistic in the way that you can either do well or you're not really going to get that far in life. And you put a lot of stress on what a lot of students don't believe to be important, like was said with creativity. If you're raising your students in a way that they don't value creativity, you're taking away that uniqueness to them. And once that's gone, you've essentially got a class of 30 mindless parrots that know how to report useless facts.
And then when I translate that into the minds of policymakers, we heard about scale. We talk about how to actually scale solutions. And what we say is it's so difficult to implement. We can't go a personalized approach. That's very often, so there's a gap between the needs, personalized needs that you're also talking about, and yeah, but we can't do that. Any thoughts about how to actually do a personalized approach and do it at scale possibly?
Well, I think that in the education system that I'm in France, we have a system where teachers give class and students just need to accept it and like digest it, but there's no connection with our teachers. And I think that teachers really play a really fundamental and critical role in students. I mean, we're incredibly influenced by our teachers, and a good teacher can make all the difference. And if we have good teachers if our teachers know us and know how we think and why we do certain things, then they'll be able to teach us better in a classroom. So I think it is possible to take every case individually, of course not on a national scale, but on a scale of what a teacher can do in a classroom. Teachers need to be more encouraged to have personal links to their students.
So invest more time in that. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, personally, I think the school should offer the students more choices on the curriculum. Like in our school, Beijing Rural School, is an international school, so we have like 3 systems, IB, AP, A-level, and I studied in the AP curriculum. And in the AP curriculum, we have like a bunch of different courses that I can select for my like preferred areas in the future. So I think firstly, the choices should be ample for the students so that they can design the personalized curriculum for themselves. And secondly, I think with the technological development, we should have more like learning with the like mobile devices, for example, iPads and iPhone. And there are systems I know like with 5G technology, they can like synchronize students' performance with like personal digital devices. And when each students finish a test, the system can like analyze their performance and kind of analyze their skills, their weakness and strongness, so that the system can design the students their own homework or their own suggestions. And I think that's a good point to like we can do.
Embrace technology on that. To just continue on the teacher, are there any tips where you say, okay, this is the one thing that we just need? For me, a teacher, you talk about it, this is what's important about a teacher. Is there one word that comes to mind or a feeling that they need to convey where you feel a teacher really made a difference for you? Any thoughts about that?
When I think of the education in my country, so France, I feel that often teachers are seen as superior people who give and deliver their knowledge in a very holy way. Kind of, we owe respect to them, we owe everything to them. I feel like it would be way more interesting to actually have a sharing of knowledge rather than a delivery, and for people to connect with the teacher more. This sense of, we know each other, we're a group, we're all in this together, rather than, here you go, just deal with it.
Rather than hierarchical, and we need to teach teachers to say it's okay to be equal. Yes. Yeah.
And also something like very simple, I feel like the teachers that I like best and that are like the ones with the best atmospheres in class are just the teachers that smile to us when they're doing class, that are interested in what they're saying and that smile.
So that, because what feeling does that give to you?
Well, it makes us feel accepted. I know in the conferences we said it's very important for children to feel like we belong in the classroom, and just smiling makes us feel like that.
Right. Yeah, 1 second.
I actually think it's quite interesting because I believe in my school, the teachers are very accommodating and they really care for the welfare of their students. Like, we have many programs and many talks about mental illness in our school, and we encourage people to stop bullying, and we encourage people to speak out if they're feeling sad or in a negative state of mind. And I really value that because I don't think a lot of schools have the same opportunity as our school. And yeah, I think it's very important for teachers to smile at us and ask about how our day is, because personally for me, if you just keep getting angry at me if I get something wrong, I lose interest in the subject immediately. I feel like you don't respect me, and in turn, I won't really respect you back because you don't really treat me as a human. You just judge me based on the grade I get on the subject. And even though personally for me, I get quite good grades, but I still feel pressure on myself and from my peers to perform at a higher level. And I don't think many people get that, because many people think that if you are smart or if you get the top levels, you don't really have to work as hard, when in reality you feel this really big sense of pressure to perform the best, because all you really want to do is perform well for your parents to feel proud of you, and you don't really want to let anyone down.
But I'm also hearing you say, look at the invisible stress and don't assume that students with good grades actually are doing all fine just because we've decided that young people who are doing well on their grades are doing well. That goes to your point as well. You had a thought.
Yeah, actually, I think it kind of closing the distance between teachers and students. And when I feel that my teacher kind of is a good friend with me, I'll kind of more likely to actively participate in the class so that I can actually learn more in the class and receive like better education and more knowledge from the teacher. Yeah, just like assume like teacher does not regard me as just a simply study machine, but we have human emotion connection with each other.
So we need to let go of the notion that respect is hierarchy and respect is perhaps equality, I'm hearing you say. Okay.
It was just what you said about in your school you have spaces where you can talk about the problems that you're having outside school or just with yourself, and I think that that's essential. We don't have that in our school. We have I think we have a psychologist. I'm not even sure because it's not really like talked about. Yeah, it's not really promoted, and yeah, I think it's essential that our teachers understand us and that that in our school environment we are understood, so that we can feel like we belong and feel like school is a safe place, not a place that we're forced to go to.
Is it also more important to have that school is a place where you feel safe, where you belong? Because with social media and all that, there's more pressure and it's more kind of a crazy world, or is that not related? This feeling of you need places of belonging, of safety. Is that important, that you feel safe in a place?
I think because we're increasingly in the technological age, I think especially schools where the students there are prone to insecurities or vulnerability, you need to have that sort of space where, because often you can't get it at home, where the child can just shut everything off and take a step back and, you know, get their head in the right place. Because if you've got all this work to do and all these exams to do well at, and you've got all these notifications and all these people and all the social media, it really quickly overwhelms you. But you need to be given the chance to step back and just take a few deep breaths for a moment, or however long it takes, because that's what's going to get you through this most stressful period of your life.
Creating a safe space. I want to close by a topic, as you heard me say this morning, about child and youth participation. I would actually call it emancipation, because emancipation requires the sitting order to also change. It's not a one-way street to just say, I do my thing, you participate with me in my rules of the game, but emancipation is sharing. Any thoughts about that? Any tips how to make sure that we don't create the false expectations, and that you really feel you can be co-creators of schools, of curricula? Any thoughts about participation or emancipation?
So I think a system should be provided to our teenagers for evidence our abilities to get into the adults' works. For example, if you offer me a certificate that I'm mature enough or knowledgeable enough for your things, and I think we can do better in your works and have more constructive opinions.
And why do you feel it's needed, that you need a certificate? Is it that because that you feel that you can be seen and heard by the rules of the game of somebody else?
Because before you know somebody, the first things you want to know is about something you have. Like in the career, once you want to have one new employees, you first see what degrees you have, where have you been for your universities. So we need something like that to be standardized to show our competence of that.
And are you afraid that otherwise you talk to me about having plans and thoughts, and then you say, well, adults don't really take you seriously. Do I hear that you say that?
Yes, I think we need some way to prove ourselves. We are capable enough for the things we are talking with you. We need a equal place. That's when we are negotiating, and you should treat us as a really friends, not as a child, I think.
Not look down upon. Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying, and it comes back to what we were saying before, that usually in the school systems that we've observed, at least, it's usually the teacher is superior to the student, and the student just has to submit himself and listen, and later on maybe he'll be able to do, or they'll be able to do something that they want the way that they want to. But I think that we need to work together more and really develop also skills that are going to be useful for us. So that's teamwork and communication. And I think it's quite incredible that in the world that we live in such a digital and connected world, that we have that education hasn't caught on to that, and that we don't use that. Education hasn't caught up with the digital world, as in we don't use the tools that are offered to us, and that we don't learn how to connect with each other and communicate globally or with each other.
Yeah, which also goes to I need to almost, because I promise, who has a question to our panel? I'm sure lots of different thoughts. 1, 2, okay. I'll finish this with you, just some thoughts, but this is what dialogue is. These are different thoughts. There's no conclusion. It's hopefully enriching for your kind of thinking to hear the words from 15-year-olds. I'm just going to give the floor, and then for you to have a question.
Actually makes you question things, because it brings up the question to me personally, like, when are young people acknowledged in life? Is it in terms of age? Because for us, we look up to the people that are older, because they have a higher position in us, that's at least how they're presented? Or is it in terms of certificates, like you said? But when can it be about the way that we think, the ideas we bring? Because many people, even the people who are not considered as, I don't know, smart by some of us, they still have ideas. When will they be acknowledged? Because even if you don't get the best grades, it doesn't mean you don't have a brain. You still have a brain throughout life. You have ideas. It doesn't just stop right there. Like in our school, if you don't get the certain grades for a subject, then that path is closed for you. You will never have an ability to study that subject again, and that limits people considerably, like a lot, because what happens to them then? Are they left behind, and then the smart people are left to go fulfill what they want, and they're just stuck there not knowing what to do?
Great, thanks for the thought. Okay, 2 questions being fired at you.
First of all, congratulations to everybody. Well done. I love every single one of you for getting your voices heard and out there. And as a fellow youngish person, I just wanted to pass on my congratulations. My question to you, I'm Syed Atcher, I'm Social Mobility Commissioner for the UK government. I just wanted to know whether or not you feel that your background or how you grew up, so kind of where you grew up, or whether or not you have money in your family or anything like that, has an impact on where you end up in the future.
Who has a thought?
Yeah, I think it's definitely related, because personally for me, my father is a director of TV shows, so that's kind of living in that kind of family really infected me and aroused my interest in drama and also arts areas. So I think in some way the family really influenced the kids' interest, and also the resources, the background of the family also can give the kids the place to go. They pay the kids for the tuitions, they give kids some suggestions. So I do believe that the family really determined partially how we ended up. Yeah.
And if we've established this morning that how important it is that children have the hope and the resilience and actually say, okay, maybe I come from a certain background, but I want to go. What are the elements that they need, you feel, to actually say, no, you know what, I can do it? What do you need to have within you to actually aspire to something that you might think, was not attainable?
You need to have a sort of resilience and own self-worth, and everyone, I think, at birth and through the earlier years of their life will have that, but if it's not nurtured and cared for by parental figures or teachers, then you'll just vanish, and you won't actually have that view of yourself, and you'll think that you are less than what you actually are, and because of that, you won't go anywhere with what you have, because you won't want to use it.
Okay, so that's what we need to nurture and instill.
I think hope is essential in the fact, like, for example, with the examples of people in Uganda in rural places, personally, I've lived in Uganda, so, like, I have experienced it as well, and I know that it's very different. Like, people have hope, but what brings them to be successful or to reach their goal is motivation and resilience again, and it's really the support that we give each other. Like, as human beings, we cannot survive alone, and we need to connect and we need to support one another to bring us to the top. And I think really, like, finding the person who's going to help you is the way to get to what you want to do. But for that, you actually need to do it yourself, because if you help someone, then they'll end up helping you back, or someone else will follow the example. And I think it's really just connecting with each other.
Great. I know that time is ticking. One last question, I promised, and then we'll close and think of maybe one last tip, one word, short sentence, so that everybody can write it down and think about it in their own word. But first, a question.
Thank you, and thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. My question builds on your point. You started saying that you think that adults and teachers should take you seriously, should trust you. I'd like to hear a little bit more about concretely what do you think, what would you tell your teachers and policymakers in education to help you have a voice, to make sure that, as the British was saying, you're not just consulted on something that's been already thought about, but that your voice is really helping co-construct what's happening in your schools, what's happening in your country. So what are your advice to those adults that in order to help them raise your voice? Thank you.
So I suggest the policymakers or the governments can set up the standards for us, and we are happy to reach that standard to show our ambitions to change these things. Once we reach the standard, so please offer us a respective chance and to talk with you and to see whether we can do or not.
Okay.
I forgot.
It's about how do we make sure that you feel truly heard and not just as a token kind of, oh yeah, we listened, tick the box, listen to young people, and now let's move on business as usual.
Well, I think it's important for adults who talk to us to remember that we can think as well, that we're all like human beings, we can all think, and we have that it's not because we're young that we're necessarily naive or that we know nothing. If we're tested on knowledge alone, it's true. I mean, adults have lived longer than us. Maybe you have more like concrete based knowledge, but in terms of experience and in terms of what we want to do with our lives, we are the first concerned, and we know ourselves better, and we know what we want and what will be, we know what we need and what will be good for us. Yeah, so we're the...
So we need to trust your strength, basically.
Yes, yes.
I also think that a very interesting perspective is that even though we're not adults and even though we're young, it actually gives us a different approach to certain things. Like we have a different perspective of them, and it can actually open up dialogue and discussion, and we can help explore ideas or points that haven't been made before, and from a different approach, because we're younger, because we have a lot, like many years in front of us. We have all these things, that all the questions that we also have, and like it can be mutual, and it can be,
So you're actually also saying, and maybe that's a great way to end this session, you're also saying you're not young adults, you're you have your own unique perspective, your fresh perspective. See us that way, and then listen to us and use it to your advantage. So don't make us into young adults, but as people in our own right and individuals in our own right. Is that a kind of a good summary? Yeah? Not just you're saying because you're polite? No? Okay. Let's end this session on that note, and thank you so much for your insights. Thank you.
So thank you so much, guys. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Your Highness, but thank you to all the other 8 of you as well who did such a fantastic job. As you said, I mean, kudos, basically, fair play. And I heard very consistently throughout, if we did a word cloud, I think the word I kept hearing was respect. Thank you so much, Your Highness. Safe journey. I know you have a plane to catch. The word I kept hearing was respect. You know, that request for respect for your views and your ideas. And so I hope we'll all take that away very clearly with us. I also, I think when we talk to young people, and I say this, I've only just got used to the fact I'm not really a young person anymore. We often say, but you have opportunities that we never had. But what you're also telling us there is, yeah, but you've left us with challenges that you never had as well. And I think often we think, oh, but you know, you've got tech, you've got everything that we never had. But actually, you know, that also presents. And yeah, I was talking to some students at my kids' school the other day about technology, and someone said, oh, but the problem with kids of today is that they can never put the smartphones down. And I said, look around the room now. The kids were all listening, the adults were all on their smartphones. So again, I think we have a huge amount that we need to take in from that. And so one final thought as you were talking there, I thought about this great line in a book called New Power that came out last year, where the guys said, Jeremy Hymans and Henry Timms, who wrote it, said, we need to move from a world that's about Tetris solutions. I don't know if you would know Tetris, but we used to play Tetris where the blocks come down and it's all very hierarchical and everyone knows where things fit. And they say we need to move from that world to a world of Minecraft solutions. Where we're building stuff together, and it's quite chaotic. We don't always know what the picture will look like at the end, but we're much more likely to listen to our peers as we co-create that world. And I think that's an idea that's really important to take through to then how we then design education in the future and curriculum in the future, which is why we've got this fantastic group from New York University, Abu Dhabi, Jack, Tyrrell, and Rawan. Now, we had this exercise at NYU Abu Dhabi where we asked the students, actually across 16, I think, global campuses, to hack the curriculum and tell us, what are the things that we're not teaching you now? What do you really feel you most need to learn, not just to survive the 21st century, but to thrive in the 21st century? And we're going to hear a bit about what you told us as a group. And maybe we'll talk about the process as well of how you actually, Minecraft style, got all that information together in order to then challenge the university as to what you really needed to learn. I want to start with you, Rowan. So we've heard a lot today. Andreas talked about it. We've just heard about it on the last panel, about this need to try and develop a more global awareness, a sense of how you understand other cultures, or the other, as Andreas was saying earlier on. And that was one of the things that you guys very clearly identified as missing in classic education. Is this something that we can teach and learn?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think coming from NYU Abu Dhabi, we're a university in a small country, on a small island, in a very small campus with 1,500 students. We represent 120 different nationalities and speak 115 different languages. And so yes, I think that you can achieve this level of globalism, and I think that a global education, which is the narrative that we've all bought into, is the best way to do it. And I think a global education is both a response to globalism, or both globalization, with 24-hour news cycles and with social media. We're bombarded with information about the rest of the world, but that exposure doesn't necessarily translate to global understanding. And so I think what a global education does, and the true value in globalism, is the idea that it humanizes the other. And so with us, in engaging with people and topics from around the world, you're able to look somebody in the eye and see their humanity. And in seeing their humanity, you're able to consider the decisions that they make, the ideas that they have. Even if you don't agree with them, you see the personality and the humanity behind it. And so I think that extends both to the classroom in discussing topics of global importance, but it also extends far beyond the classroom. We have now 3 nationalities represented, and in having these 3 nationalities represented, you can really feel a sense of people's humanities, and you consider them. When I read a story now about Norway or the UK, it's not just about people in a far-off land. It's about my friends who are sitting next to me and their families and the impacts that they have. And I think that that's really what globalism is. It's about thinking about other people, not only as distant lands or distant figures, but as almost an extension of yourself, as if you have a personal stake in them and their experiences. And so I think that can be achieved. And I think that that's something that we're doing at NYU Abu Dhabi.
Is there a risk in all of that, though, that we end up creating a generation of global citizens who all have a kind of common identity, but then people lose their sense of the local?
I think that's something that I've been struggling with a little bit. I'm Sudanese Canadian, and I've moved around quite a bit, and I think that you can still have that sense of localism within the context of the globe, because that localism doesn't necessarily need to correspond to a city or a town or even a country. It's the idea of your direct community. And so I think for me, in losing a kind of almost the where do I call home, which city do I answer, I've gained a network that I still consider to be my local community. So maybe locals just changed.
Yeah, thank you. And Tyrrell, one of the other things you identified as a group was the need in some way to learn the skills of coexistence. And you basically said that one of the aspects of the world that we're leaving you is this sense of political polarization and difference. And certainly my generation, when we went to school, we learned the history of the wars that Britain had actually won, and not much else about history. You guys said we can actually teach coexistence, but what is it that we need to, how do we do that?
Yeah, so I'm from Norway, My parents are from Norway. I live at a little farm 3 hours away from Oslo. And when I told my parents that I'm applying to New York University, Abu Dhabi, firstly, it's in the United Arab Emirates. My mom thought I was going to Saudi Arabia. My grandma, till this day, calls it Abu Dubai. And that's some of the background I came from. Not a child from a very well-traveled family. But I went to United World College in Germany, and that was my first exposure to global education with people from 80 countries living there for 2 years. And that's when I was first exposed to very people from all over the world with very different opinions, views on life, takes on life. And that's when I decided that I have to go and learn more. And it's not only about perspective taking. I think we talked a lot about that today. Imagine what the youth want, imagine what the youth do. But in the polarized world, what we're doing is not only taking people's perspective, we need to seek other perspective. And that's amazing, as we just did in the previous session, seeking other perspectives. But thirdly, I think it's about incorporating perspectives. And all of these 3 components can be taught through school. Now, my educational background might be a little different because I went to Germany and then to Abu Dhabi, and there I was able to study away in Shanghai and New York. And I've been very fortunate to actually travel and in that way seek and incorporate perspectives that I've been able to utilize in my life. But it's not about traveling, it's about people around you. Do I understand where you come from? Do I ask where you come from? And not only when I try to understand who you are, do I try to ask you, Tom, what do you actually think and why is that? And once you tell me what you actually think, do I go back and try to incorporate that in my daily life? Because at the end of the day, perspectives is not about truth or false. It's about that's how you feel based on your background, your experiences, your lived reality. And I think that's the beauty, is being able to say, okay, that's how you see the world, and being able to be content with that.
And do you feel, I mean, when you're hacking the curriculum and when you're talking about these sorts of skills, do you feel that sense of kind of global awareness, cultural awareness, is something that your future employers will value? Do you think it's something that will make you more attractive in the job market, as well as being something that is a fantastic thing to have?
Well, that also depends with the job market you're going into. My dream job, as was previously decided, I knew what I wanted to become when I was 12 years old. I was going to become a peacemaker. And now, 11 years later, I still want to become a peacemaker, as I fit the statistics very well. Now, if I think global perspective will be important, if I'm ever going to be able to grasp security issues at a deep level, definitely. Do I hope people will value a global perspective on it? Definitely. And it's so needed. It's so needed to understand where people come from, what has shaped their thought, and also not just dismiss them as being a crazy dictator that we often see in media, and that we also often see people at a grassroots level perceive the other side as. So the more interaction we can have, the better. And I hope, and I really hope. Yeah, I really hope employees will value this. Yeah.
I can promise you as well that Peacemaker will be one of the last jobs that gets automated, so you're probably pretty safe on that. I'm hoping so anyway. Jack, but we've heard a bit about technology so far, and we discussed it on the last panel too. What does the fourth industrial revolution mean to you in terms of what you all need to learn?
Yeah, so I think I'm firstly going to start by saying a little disclaimer. I'm not going to walk in here and pretend to be an expert on the fourth industrial revolution. I think that'd be a pretty awful career decision. But there are a couple of ways in which I can imagine it would make a serious difference. The first one is actually an experience that I had. I had an experience pretty dissimilar to Tyrrell in the sense that growing up in the UK and making my way through secondary education, I still, towards the end of it, didn't know what I wanted to do. And when we were writing our personal statements and going through the UK system, I realized that all the things I had to write about were basically about me and the reasons in which I would be good to study the thing that I want to study. And now, needless to say, that's fairly difficult to write about if you don't actually know what you want to study. And now it's got to the case where, because we have these changes in industry and in AI, we not know what we want to study quite so much, we don't actually know what the options are anymore. And so to a large extent, I think what's necessary is, certainly in tertiary education, so you need to make sure you have the opportunities and the abilities to catch these people that sort of sit there and go, you know what, I'm still not ready to decide. And it could be the option that you slip into an apprenticeship scheme. I think there are something like 800,000 apprenticeships currently running in the UK. And that is absolutely not a detrimental thing to be involved in. But there's also a responsibility not only on the apprenticeship system and the vocational degrees, but also on the tertiary system, the traditional one that we know it, to make sure that all of these kids have the opportunity to go out of university still able to expand their horizons on what they want to do later. I think that's really important. And the second way, I think, most fundamentally in which the fourth industrial revolution is going to change education is very simply and very obviously the way in which classes are taught and what classes they're going to be. So a great example is the fact that we all have so much information on our phones nowadays. And you could ask yourself, do we still need to waste our time having non-calculator maths exams? I'm rubbish at them, firstly, so I'd like to say no, absolutely not. But there are also so many ways in which we can use this to adapt, to make our lives easier. There's the constant discussion of having, online exercises or online courses which are going to make the lives of teachers far easier and gain greater exposure to students, which is obviously another end goal. And then one other example that I heard about a couple of months ago is that actually using things like robotics, it's extremely useful in a very niche market such as children with learning disabilities, which I found really, really interesting because they have an awesome ability, just for an example, to repeatedly provide an emotion or some sort of facial expression with just an unlimited level of patience. And it's these very niche markets, I think, which are most fundamental in making sure that we utilize properly. And within the next 3-4 years, it's going to increase exponentially. So I think the moral is to be excited, probably.
Yeah, that's a pretty good starting point. But do you think, I'm listening to it, it feels likely that the next generation of students, even if you guys don't, might start just opting out and just organizing their education themselves. If you can get a much better course from Barack Obama online than you can get from me on diplomacy, then why wouldn't you just go and take his course? Do you think that will happen? Are more students already dropping out of your peers?
So from what I can understand, actually less students are probably dropping out currently at the rate we have, purely because the variety of institutions that we have is broadened so much, but within the university level. So that's not to say it's either go to university or do something online. It's more the fact that universities have had a great experience in incorporating these technologies, which means you're still involved at university, but you're also experiencing all of these positive effects as well. So you can take a course, for example, I took a course on Chinese philosophy in Shanghai, and we had a load of, half our classes were Skype calls with people. It means you're still enrolled, you're still doing everything you can, except you've got 5 teachers instead of 1.
And to what extent do you feel that you have agency and power within a university? So if you basically feel that something that you're being taught is utterly pointless for the future, it's not going to help you live your life in a better way, it's not going to help you get the employment you're looking for, do you feel you can team up and change that? Do you feel you have that power? I can go to anyone, really.
Yes, I think definitely so. I don't know if any of you else have had this experience, but when I grew up and I learned Pythagoras, I thought that was the most useless thing I had spent my time on, because I knew I was going to be a peacemaker. So why do I have to learn Pythagoras? And the liberating feeling of coming to, I mean, I studied it and I understood it, but still thought that this is not something I will use in my daily life. And coming to university and with the liberal arts curriculum that we're under, means that you can pick the classes you want to build up your major. And that means that while you study political science and you have a set courses you have to take, you can also do classes from economics, from history, from biology, Pythagoras if I wanted to, languages. And that is so beneficial because I can actually study what I'm interested in. And if I get to know about another topic I thought was very, very interesting, I can actually enroll in a class in that. So I've been able to take classes in economics next to international relations and public policy. And we had done Arabic and Chinese, and even Chinese bamboo flute, because I thought that would be very interesting to learn on the side. And that is very, very empowering to be able to finally be able to study what I want to study and what I think is useful, but also what gives me a high life quality and make me happy.
And on the happiness point, because we heard actually in the panel just before lunch from Anthony and others about the importance of learning how to be happy and resilient, what do you see as the character skills you'll most need to be taught in order to thrive?
Yeah, so I think it's changing almost yearly at the moment, and luckily enough, because we're at a global university, we have the ability to sort of roughly understand what the skills will be necessary in different geographical regions of the world. But I think some of the main skills, which links back again to the whole idea of having these facts on your phone, that it's basically critical analysis. Like, the more we hear about it, the more you talk about politics in all sorts of countries all over the world, you don't actually know if what you're reading on your phone is true or not. And so in university, it may well be very necessary not to learn what your phone is telling you, or not to keep researching, but to learn how to research, how to write, and how to critically assess where you're gaining your sources from.
And I think to add to that, we're seeing much more life skills being needed to be taught in school. And that goes for how do you pay bills? How do you cook a healthy meal? How do you work out properly? Because these are things that were given before, that were supposed to be taught in the house. But now seeing my peers, seeing myself, it's more significant than ever that education takes a wholesome approach to life and teaches you life skill, not only very, very important to being able to distinguish fact from opinion, but also being able to educate happy people with high life quality that will contribute to the overall happiness of a country, and we know that leads to increased efficiency, leads to lower medical bills. And I think that's something that education should incorporate more and more and more of.
And I think, if I can jump in, I think this is maybe a good point to link to the idea of hacking your curriculum, because now at NYU we're so lucky, the administration and the faculty, I feel coming in, the biggest shift from high school to university was that they see you as equals and they see you as peers. And so if you go and you say, hey, I think it's very important for me to understand how to do laundry. They do laundry sessions. So all of these don't necessarily exist within the context of the classroom. They're life skills that are being taught. And that's being taught because there's this idea that students are understanding what their needs are, either in this immediate present or in the future. And they're able to engage with administrators and with faculty to make sure that those needs are met.
And it's interesting, when you go to an airport now, on your point about life skills, you'll see that the bestseller books are all about basically how to eat the right things, how to exercise, and how to look after your money. So there's clearly a gap there in our collective understanding of how to do those things. We've got time for probably one question, actually. Jim, do you want to shout, or shall I throw you in?
Thank you. Fantastic adverts for global education, and clearly destined to be at home in an environment like the OECD. But it raises a question which, at a very crass, hackneyed level, was expressed by the former Prime Minister of Britain, that a citizen of the world is a citizen of nowhere. And whilst I strongly disagreed with that, where she had a point is, how do you access diversity? How do you access diversity of income, of advantage? And be as comfortable with people who've got less advantage from education and from circumstance and a different destiny?
I think, and here I am completely honest that I'm colored by the school system I come from in Norway, but when I was looking for education, it had to be free. I was asking my mom, if I got accepted to Harvard, would you help me pay? She said, oh, it's Harvard. Yeah, I think I'll pay you a visit. And so that was the grade, or that was the standard I came in with. And I think that's so important to be able to offer free education that is able to incorporate the global perspectives. So United World College is very good at that by providing full scholarships to 17 schools around the world. And NYU Abu Dhabi gives full scholarships. And that's why, firstly, that a lot of people apply. But that's also why you're able to reach this diversity that you wouldn't be able to reach if it was an elite education, elite in terms of what money can buy, and not in terms of where can your talent and your determination get you. And we talked about this before. One of the barriers then, if you don't have income, one of the barriers is language, because speaking English is a privilege. I think Rowan can say a little bit more about.
And I think a global education is responding to this idea of being within an echo chamber. And I think that it's not just a global education of nationality or of color. It's also an education of experiences and a vast kind of variety of experiences. And so I think that's something that this concept of a global education is going to have to respond to, making sure that the people who opt in aren't just the people who already feel invested in this mission of globalizing and of inclusivity. It's also making sure that you can get other people and make it accessible to other people so they also can reap the benefits, because it's not just about kind of I'm from India and you're from South Korea, therefore we're global. It's the idea that we're representing different experiences. And so I think one of the big challenges, not only of global education, but of education more generally, is making sure that it is accessible to people of lower incomes, that it is accessible to people of different languages, that it is accessible to people who are living in rural areas, and so on and so forth. And so I think what you're identifying is important, and I think that's a problem that global education is going to have to solve in the future if it is to remain outside of the echo chamber that it's trying to protect itself from.
I think briefly, if I could also echo that, the whole language barrier issue is a massive issue, because it gets to the point where if you're going to design the perfect university, you want to make sure it provides great teaching and great education. You want to make sure it's accessible to as many people as possible. And so we're lucky enough to come from a place where actually financially we're fairly secure. You know, they have the ability to provide us with the finances if we're not able to go otherwise. And because of that, you get quite a broad number of applications and a broad diversity of the people that end up getting accepted. But you're entirely right, because even if you were to give the direct amount of funding that they require to anybody on the planet, you get to the point where you go, it's really only the people that speak English can come. You're already, I think it's about between 1.5 and 2 billion people out of the 7.5 that speak English fluently, which is about 26%, I think, of the world's population. And so if you're already taking that down to 26%, then actually what you're doing is you're only taking the kids from the poorer countries that have had the ability to go to quite an expensive international school and learn English. Then what you're doing actually is you're only selecting the kids from these diverse countries that have had the money to be able to pay for such expensive high schools. They could probably pay for the tuition anyway a lot of the time. And so you're sort of back where you started. And I think, like Rowan said and Tyrrell said, it's going to be a massive issue, because I just took English as an example there. But it's going to happen with all other languages. And unless you had either all of these equal opportunities of all institutions for all of the available languages, or you came up with some form of universal language, then this is a problem that's going to persist.
I'm conscious of the time, but if you would like to see the curriculum that was hacked by the New York University Abu Dhabi students, you can go to the Towards Global Learning Goals website. Feel free to hack it again. As Jack says, it's going to need to keep changing every year, but this was our best stab at what we think students need to be taught right now. For our final session before we go back into the main auditorium, Valerie Hannon, is Valerie here? Fantastic. Hi, Valerie. The co-founder of the Innovation Unit is going to lead our last conversation. Valerie is very kindly stepping in for poor Holly Branson, who, despite what Richard said this morning, is actually not with us because she unfortunately is sick today. But we're in your safe hands, Valerie, with the WorldSkills champions, who I think are coming to join you. And then Valerie is also very kindly acting as the rapporteur for all these sessions to take back everything that we've digested, this extraordinary mixture of content, back into the main session. So welcome to Valerie, and thank you to Jack, Rowan, and Tyrrell.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for hanging in for this last session of the afternoon. And we come now, last but very much not least, to what's often seen as the Cinderella section of education and skills, technical vocational education and training. And I'll preface my remarks by saying you're not often in a room with champions. Well, you are this afternoon, because in front of you, you have got 4 WorldSkills champions. No mean feat, I can tell you. And they are here courtesy of WorldSkills. Now, to my shame, before this year, I'd never heard of WorldSkills. And if you haven't, do please, please, I implore you, check it out, because it's an extraordinary organization. WorldSkills is predicated on the notion that, guess what, skills matter. Skills change lives. They change the lives of people who acquire them and practice them and become excellent in them. And they change the lives of those who, like all of us, are on receipt of them. So we really can't underestimate, I think, or can't overestimate the importance of skills. And WorldSkills is devoted as an organization to raising their profile and to enabling young people such as the 4 before you to take them to extraordinary high levels of excellence. So I could introduce them one by one, but actually they've created a short video to introduce them. If you could play that now for us, please. Thank you. So you see how privileged you are to be in their company. I think you got a sense from that video too of the excitement and the thrill of being part of something like that. Really, really extraordinary. So welcome all. Thank you very much for giving your time. So Anna, Gary, Ricardo, and Pearl, you saw their specialisms. They've reached, in a sense, in their mid or late 20s now, the sort of height of let's put it there, if they're not at the very height, they're on the runway to the top of their professions. And I'd really like you to, as a round of four, say a little bit about the strengths of the TVET system that you came through, and then where WorldSkills took it through to, in terms of your involvement in the programme, how that gave you that extra boost, and what it was about the programme in terms of conferring skills that made it a special experience. Who would like to start? Anna, you're going to go first.
Yeah, thank you. Well, speaking of myself, I actually came to the TVET by choice, and I was kind of challenging the stigma which already laid on the TVET education by choosing the way of in my country it's called college, but it's the considered as a way for people who are not good enough for the university, but it wasn't the reason why I came there. I came there because it was important for me to make something with my hands, and I chose the profession of a pastry chef, and I really wanted to achieve a lot through my profession, but it was challenging, and then I got lucky and I went through the WorldSkills system. So my experience is unique because I got to participate in the competition, and I was chosen to represent my country in the international competition, and it was the experience which changed my life. And I think it changed the life of everyone who was there in this movement. And it helped me to realize what is my value in this world as a skilled professional and where I'm gonna move. Because I think not many people understand that like the skilled profession is not a dead end. Like I'm a pastry chef, it don't have to mean that I'm going to spend all my life in the kitchen doing the same stuff. So I pursued the academic career after sometimes working in the trades, and I got my degree in the food science, and now I get in the master degree. So it's kind of the path I'm following, and I think that that's the WorldSkills, the competition is a great part in my path. Yeah.
Thanks, Anna. I want to come back to your experience in a moment, particularly since you've had this interesting comparison, not many people have it, of taking vocational skills to a high level and then doing an academic degree as well. So maybe come back to that point. Gary, what about you?
Thank you. As Anna said also, I chose the path of vocational training. So I followed in my dad and my older brother's footsteps. They're both all in construction. So I wanted to follow plastering. And then for me, I was fortunate enough when I was going through my apprenticeship that I saw people that I knew from school training for the WorldSkills competition. I showed interest, and my trainer in that school then said, "You'd be great, you should go for it." So 1 year later, he contacted me and asked me, did I want the opportunity to go into the national competition, which led me to WorldSkills International. And then I was fortunate enough that I had the support of my employer, who was assisting me and telling me to go for it, and giving me the opportunity. So I had support along the way. And then when I'd done the actual competition, once again, I was recognized at the competition by people from Saint-Gobain. And then I was presented with a job opportunity from the competition, and from the guys from New York University. I actually worked on that project, and I trained all the installers how to install the drywall on that project, because I live in Dubai, and I've lived there for 7 years. And I only got that from the WorldSkills competition and from choosing my trade. And now I'm moving, I'm a plasterer, so I'm meant to be seen as like in a kind of a dirty trade. But I'm actually on sites training people, sharing leadership skills and my skills and knowledge with the workforce in the UAE.
Thank you. Ricardo?
Well, I started my vocational education actually almost by accident. I had just finished high school, it was 2009, and I didn't know what to do with my life, really. So I was working with my family at the time, and I had a little bit of pressure from my mom so I should start something, but I didn't know exactly what to do. I was thinking about going to uni, but I was worried about regretting a decision if I didn't know what to do. So I got to know an institution which is called Senai. It's responsible for technical and vocational education in Brazil. And I started a course there, printing and graphic design course. And it was like the perfect step for me because I really got into it, and I noticed it was something for me. So through this course, I got selected to represent the school in a regional competition because Senai is the organization responsible for preparing Brazilian competitors for WorldSkills. And I got involved and more involved and got a chance to compete in international. And today I'm here because of them. Like, totally changed my life.
Thank you. All three of you were kind of lucky in the sense that you found your passion. You didn't know what the hell to do with yourself, and you stumbled into it, but you knew you were there. Gary, you had a family background that kind of pointed you in that direction. You were perhaps being a bit more selective, having a look around. What about your story, Pearl?
Hi, thank you. And I'm from Hong Kong, and I'm Pearl, and I'm now an exhibition designer, and I'm having my own business. So go through back why I chose WePads. Actually, in high school, I'm really, really bad student, not good at anything. So I'm the one who's very confused what I will be in the future. Even my family is so worried about me. And then the reason why I didn't choose university instead of choosing WePads, because when I look back what is my interest like in my childhood, what I focus on, what I'm the most enjoyable is drawing. So that's why I want to go with the design way for my future career. And that's why I look on the university that I heard in high school. It is only about interior design, architecture, or landscape design, something like that. But when I look at the vocational education, there has a lot of design categories for me to study. And I noticed they have an exhibition design program, which I think is so special for me in Hong Kong. I never heard before. I bet you guys didn't heard before as well. And that's why I'm very interested in exhibition design. And I thought it's not that much graduates in 1 year in Hong Kong, like have an exhibition design program, higher diploma student graduate. So that's why I chose it. And then during 2 years of vocational education, I met WorldSkills, and I found this is a big opportunity for me to showcase my skill and my passion of design. So that's why I competed in visual merchandising and window dressing competition in WorldSkills Sao Paulo 2015. And after the competition, I felt like I have a strong passion in it. And someone tell me, is my mentor, told me that they have a degree in UK, which is design for exhibition and museum. I thought exhibition design we only having in education, vocational education. I didn't realize they have in university, and that's why I'm really interested in it. And I got a scholarship and have a degree. And after that, I still connect with WorldSkills, and that's why I'm here. I'm representing WorldSkills and representing WorldSkills champions, and yeah, I'm here.
So those are your personal stories, your personal histories. What we've had in the first two sessions from school students and then university students is some reflection on the nature of the learning that they've been through, the quality of it. School students very dissatisfied. Having teachers who transmit, who don't necessarily respect or communicate well with them, who don't give them much choice or much voice. Higher education students feeling they need to hack the curriculum. I wonder if you'd like to reflect upon your experience of being taught, either within your colleges or within the WorldSkills setup, being taught, sometimes called being trained, rather derogatory term, I think. But if you'd like to reflect back on the kind of experiences that have taught you to become champions, what are their strengths and weaknesses? Anybody? Anna?
I want to say that actually the educational system in my country went through some changes during this time. I'm involved with the WorldSkills education competition, and when I started to learn my trade, it was really theoretical, and that's not how you how you learn to be a pastry chef. You can't read it in a book, but I was able just to read in a book how to temper chocolate, how to bake a cake, and it's not the proper way to do it. But right now I see that due to some changes which are happening in the educational system, students actually have an opportunity to learn by doing real recipes during their education, by doing stuff, and it's extremely important. It's really profitable and beneficial for them, because they go into the workplaces and they already have an idea what to do. They already can start to work and start to do what they love, and they actually have an opportunity to feel what it is to be a pastry chef.
Did you get the right balance, do you think, between the theoretical and the practical?
I get lucky because I had a training with WorldSkills, and they gave me a lot of practical education.
More than you would have had otherwise.
Yeah, and then from the practical, I went to the theory. So it's like the way back to the higher education, because I had a lot of questions and I needed to find a way to answer them. Why my cake is not good as I expected to, and what's happened? Is it like the water? What's the chemical reaction behind it? And that's the way how I feel it should be done.
I once had a professor who sent himself up by saying, well, this is all very well in practice. Obviously it works in practice, but does it work in theory? He did have some self-criticism there. Good. Ricardo, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, no, just about thinking about the impact of vocational education and the importance of it. For example, WorldSkills is an organization which is not responsible for the developing courses, but it helps to set standards over the world. So you got like high standards, great standards, and countries, if they do it right, like I think Brazil is doing it right in this matter, but they send competitors to compete in these competitions, then they get, it's not only the competitor, they send also an expert, and it's a place for connection and for learning. So they get all these standards and they bring back to their countries, and they're able to modify and evolve their curriculums based on these high standards. So, yeah.
So another strength of TVET is often said to be the close engagement of employers. Have you found that in part of your experience? Anyone want to talk about that one? Gary?
Yeah, so for me, 100%, because the company I work for now are actually a global partner of WorldSkills International. So they actually visit the competition every year it's on, and they have an array of over 1,000 of the best employees in the world to choose from to see if they'd fit into their companies. But yeah, going, I think like some of the countries, going back to the previous question, like the UK, when London hosted the WorldSkills competition in 2011, they then started up the Skills Show, which is a competition every year, and they use the standard of WorldSkills and the way that WorldSkills operates in the Skills Show to make their competition better and to make everything work better for them and for the young people there.
It does seem to me that WorldSkills and people like you as advocates, as champions, has the potential to raise the profile and put an end to this notion of technical and vocational options being a second-class option for people who don't know what to do with themselves, who are basically not very bright. It's insulting, it's wrong, and it's such a loss of talent. I don't know if any of you feel that you've got a mission to address all of that. Ricardo?
Yeah, sure. For example, when I got into TVET, I was not very sure about it. It ended up being definitely being the right decision. But I have, for example, five close friends. They all got into university in the same time that they got into VET. 3 of them, by 2 or 3 years of studies, they just decided to quit and change courses, or some of them didn't finish the university. And for me, this is amazing about VET, because you can really try a profession, you can really try a trade, And as it is shorter than a university, and you got like more practical experience, it makes much easier for you to decide if it's what you want or not. And even though if you want to go to, today I'm in university, I'm doing design and visual communication, and the basis that the VET gave me, like put me 1 or 2 steps ahead of most of the other students. Not saying, oh, I'm better or worse, it's not about it. But when we get to university, for example, you think about design, okay, what a designer needs to be? Oh, he or she needs to be creative. But it's not only about creativity. If you don't know the technical, you don't know the limitations, you don't know what you can create, what you cannot create. So the VET gives you all the basis, at least in my experience was like that. It gave me all the base that I need, the technical base, the tools, the softwares, the techniques. And when I got to university, I could like develop and create products much easier than the others, because the others were struggling on how to use software or what are the right standards to do something. So
I think we are the same situation because we're studying design. And in my case, like in those 2 years in vocational education, we are not just staying in a classroom, you know. We are always going out, you know. They have a lot of events, exhibition happening outside, so why not we go outside instead of you searching for the reference photo or like that. And beyond that, we have a lot of opportunities to connect with the industry. Like we watch the construction process of an exhibition, and that experience and that memories is more beneficial than I stay in a classroom and watch the process. And I think that is kind of my strength when I get drawn into the industry, because this is what the industry needs. They are not just want some designer have creative thinking, but they have to bring their creative ideas to take it to the ground and make it happen in reality.
So it could be said of schooling and higher education too, that a mark of a good system turns out lifelong learners. People who might or might not have succeeded in exams, but who are absolutely committed to carry on learning the rest of their lives and find joy in it and love it. Would you say that's happened? I mean, in your case, Anna, you've committed, you're off to a master's degree now in any case, but so clearly it's given you a taste for more learning and you don't feel you're done and dusted.
Actually, speaking of life learning, I wanted to refer to the study which was made by the OECD and the WorldSkills about the young people and their feeling about the future. And one of the interesting points for me was that the young people are not afraid of the technological change. And actually people, speaking about the automatization, people say like the trades gonna disappear, but I feel we are not afraid of this because we are learn through our lives. So like I'm 26, I never stopped in my learning. I'm not going so far. Like right now I'm studying programming, and actually that's, if you go to the competition side and you want to find the skill which will implement programming, you will go to the pastry last, I think. But I feel this is important for my next step in my career path, and that's really important in understanding young people that we are having this skill of life learning already, and we are not going to stop in this.
Anybody else on that one? Ricardo?
Yeah, this is another benefit about vocational education, because as it's if you compare to university, for example, it's a shorter thing. I think it can be a great tool for these next generations that are gonna have to retrain themselves along their lives. So probably some of the skills and trades, they're gonna disappear or they're gonna evolve, transform, others will come. And I think the vocational education is a great bridge for learning, for retraining, because it's faster, it's really applicable to the market, to the industry. So yeah, basically helps a lot in this scenario.
Seems like you could distill a really important model out of this, which is find your passion, design a program that is engaging, practical, and also acknowledges success. So you experience real success and achievement in your learning. And then you've got the bug. You will carry on learning and adapting and shifting. I mean, I'm getting some nods anyway, so maybe you agree. I want to finish with something that business leaders often level at technical and vocational. They say, we get young people in, but they don't show any leadership and they're not trained for it. I wonder if any of you feel that in your own experience, either with WorldSkills or in your TVET programs, the whole issue about leadership, you're not just there to do what you're told, but actually enabling you to think about leadership in your trades and professions came up. Gary, do you want to kick off on that?
Yeah, so I found when I was going through my apprenticeship that, and even in school, you're never taught, it's more the apprenticeship, you're never taught to be like the leader, or you're always taught that you're going to go out and you're going to work and you're going to do your job and you'll always be a worker.
What you're told.
Yeah, pretty much. So I feel if there was an area where you could be taught some like managerial skills and stuff while you're going through your apprenticeship as well, or your training, whatever it may be. Because for me, like when I went into my job, I started at the bottom and I had to work my way up, and I'm learning from the people above me and from my boss. But I wouldn't even call my boss a boss. I never had a boss. I've always had leaders. So they've always, if I've ever been doing something wrong, I'd never get told off. I'd be always explained and showed how to do it the correct way and how to come at it from a different approach. And the position I'm in now today, I never thought I'd be leading other people. So I'm implementing what my leader has taught me to the people that I'm now leading.
Thank you. And you, Pearl, started off your own business pretty quickly. Was your training, did you have some explicit support and training around entrepreneurialism and starting a business, or was that something that you set out yourself to uncover?
The reason why I started my business, because after graduation, I really stay in a full-time job in a design company in Hong Kong. Like, I have a lot of experience of big events and some exhibition booth. That's a lot of work. Yeah, like art installation. You know, exhibition design is so diversity. So that's why I want to jump out of my comfort zone, actually, to build up my own business and try to make me be a diverse person or diverse designer. And also, I think this is what VPAT taught me. And that's why I now want to be a snatch person. Do you know what I mean? It's like I can do exhibition design / graphic design / animation design. That's a lot. So that's why I want to be a snatch designer.
You learned something this afternoon, didn't you? I'm very conscious of time, where's Tom, and we presumably need to wrap this up. Have we got time for 1 or 2 questions from the floor? Would anyone like to Claudia? A microphone's on its way.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's just people in the back find it hard.
Thank you. I find your stories really inspiring. I had a question. From everything you've said, it sounds like identifying a passion is key. And I believe that for a lot of young people, that's quite an intimidating proposition. What do you feel passionate about? And I'd be interested to know what advice you would give to young people on how they can go about identifying what their passion might be and what it might feel like inside them.
I'll kick us off. Oh, yeah. So when I was in school, I always thought I wanted to be an accountant. So this is because we had a career guidance, and you had to sit with him every week, and you had to tell him what you wanted to be. Yeah, so I had to tell him something, so that's what I went with. But I didn't like crunching numbers and stuff like that. Yeah, but once I came out of school, I knew I wanted to start working with my hands straight away. I knew I'd kind of have a gift for it, because it was in my family. Everyone has done it. So I started off as a carpenter. And fortunate enough, the person I was doing work for, he went bankrupt. And then I fell into plastering. So by luck, I fell into a job that I grew to love and just evolved through that. So Maybe a bit of luck, but don't be afraid to follow like a dream. Like I knew I wanted construction, wearing steel toe cap boots every day. That's wearing a hard hat. That's what I knew I wanted to do. And I knew that even when I was in school telling the career guidance that I want to be an accountant, I didn't. So don't be afraid to go down a TVET role, because there's some of the greatest people in the world. You saw Richard Branson this morning, left school at 15. You don't, there's many routes to become successful in life.
There's a big element of luck in it, though, isn't there? Sounds like luck for you, Anna, or something a bit more, you know, systematically sampling a whole range of things. We feel, yeah, that's it.
No, I actually want to elaborate on Gary's don't be afraid. And for me, I chose cooking and being a chef basically because I have no idea how to cook and I wanted to know how. And I wasn't afraid to try a TVET, even though it's like not the prestigious way to, it wasn't the prestigious way to start a career, but I figured out that like I love science, I love art, and the cooking is something between this. So it was my way to experiment in my career. Like people think that you choosing a career, you're gonna follow it by the end for the whole life, but no, it's not like this.
Think a bit more flexibly.
Yeah, be creative.
Did you want a last word, Pearl? You're holding the microphone in threatening fashion.
As I said, I'm a very, very bad student, and how can I find my passion is...
Can you say that? Stop saying that.
All of my teachers in high school really hate me, actually.
It's their problem.
Yes, and that's why my family is worried about me as well. But I tell myself that if I can find a passion that I love, and I change that passion, turn into my skill profession, and I would give 100% to work on it. And yeah, that's why.
On that note, I think we should end. And if you're not inspired by that lot, I don't know what it would take. Thank you very much indeed.
So thank you, Valerie, and thank you, guys. That was absolutely superb. And thank you to everyone who spoke during that was a brilliant 2 hours, actually. I feel that we've learned a huge amount. And for many people who are in education reform, education pioneers, it's often quite lonely out there, this effort to promote more teaching of skills and character and the kinds of things you guys are talking about. A lot of people are doing that sort of in isolation. And the great thing about what we've heard all the way through these 2 hours is actually we can now go out armed with the knowledge that it's what young people want, and it's what you've shown actually works, and that's incredibly powerful. So thank you very much for that indeed. Your main test now of your skill, you guys, is that you've got to get 10 minutes to the other auditorium. You're allowed to have a coffee on the way and refresh yourselves, and then we'll have the final session of the day to close things up, which Valerie's going to be a key part of feeding back on everything we've heard in this session. Thank you.
And then you guys should go into Instagram and look for WorldSkills and follow them.